And although grace is conferred on men through the aforesaid sacraments, yet they do not become blameless by receiving grace. For gratuitous gifts are received in the soul as habitual dispositions, for man does not always act according to them. But nothing prevents him who has a habit from acting according to his habit or against it, just as a grammarian can speak correctly according to grammar, or even speak inconsistently against grammar. And this is also the case with the habits of the moral virtues, for he who has the habit of justice can also act against justice. This is because the use of habits in us is from the will. But the will has opposites to both. It is clear then that the recipient of gratuitous gifts may sin by acting contrary to grace. Still, there cannot be impeccability in man without the immutability of the will, but the immutability of the will cannot belong to man except insofar as it reaches its ultimate end. For from this the will is rendered unchangeable because it is completely fulfilled, so that it has nothing to divert it from that in which it is established. But the fulfillment of the will does not belong to man unless he has reached the ultimate end. For as long as something remains to be desired, the will is not fulfilled. Therefore, sinlessness does not belong to man until he reaches the ultimate end. This indeed is not given to man in the grace which is conferred in the sacraments, because the sacraments are for the help of man, according as he is on the way to the end. Therefore, it is not by the grace received in the sacraments that one is rendered blameless.
Further, all sin arises from a certain ignorance, whence the philosopher says that all evil is ignorant, and it is said in Proverbs, "Those who work evil err." Only then can a man be safe from sin according to his will, when according to his understanding he is safe from ignorance and error. Now it is manifest that man is not rendered immune from all ignorance and error through the grace received in the sacraments. For this is according to the understanding of man who looks into that truth which is the certainty of all truths, which inspection is the last end of man, as was shown in the third. Therefore, it is not by the grace of the sacraments that man is rendered blameless. Again, for the alteration of man, which is according to malice and virtue, the alteration which is according to the passions of the soul works much. For from the fact that the passions of the soul are restrained and ordered by reason, a man becomes virtuous or is preserved in virtue. So long as man is changeable according to the passions of the soul, he is also changeable according to vice and virtue. But the alteration which is according to the passions of the soul is not removed by the grace conferred in the sacraments, but remains in man as long as the soul is united to the susceptible body. It is evident, therefore, that man is not rendered blameless by the grace of the sacraments. In addition, it seems superfluous to warn them not to sin who cannot sin. But through evangelical and apostolic teaching, the faithful are reminded that they have already obtained the grace of the Holy Spirit through the sacraments. For it is said in Hebrews 12:15, contemplating that no one should fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness sprouting upward hinder him. And Ephesians 4:30, do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, in which you are sealed. And 1 Corinthians 10:12, let him who thinks he stands watch that he does not fall. The apostle himself also says of himself, I chastise my body and reduce it to slavery, lest perhaps, having preached with others, I myself should become reprobate. Therefore, it is not through the grace received in the sacraments that men are made blameless. By this the error of some heretics is excluded, who say that a man, after he has received the grace of the Spirit, cannot sin, and if he sins, he never had the grace of the Holy Spirit.
but they take as support for their error what is said in 1 Corinthians 13:8. Charity never fails. And 1 John 3:6 it is said, everyone who remains in him does not sin, and everyone who sins has not seen him or known him. And below, in more express terms, everyone who is of God does not commit sin, because his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin, because he is born of God. But these are not effective in showing their purpose. For it is not said that charity never fails, because he who has charity sometimes does not lose it. When it is said, Revelations 2:4, I have a few things against you because you have left your first love. But for this reason it has been said that charity never ceases. Because since the other gifts of the Holy Spirit, having their own imperfection, such as the spirits of prophecy and the like, will be evacuated when that which is perfect comes, charity will remain in that state of perfection. But those things which were introduced from the Epistle of John are said to be because the gifts of the Holy Spirit by which a man is adopted or reborn as a son of God, insofar as he is of himself, have such a power that they can preserve a man without sin, and a man cannot sin by living according to them. He can, however, act against them and sin by departing from them. For it is thus said that he who is born of God cannot sin, as if it were said that hot cannot be cooled, yet that which is hot can become cold, and thus it will be cooled. Or as if it were said, the just does not act unjustly, namely, insofar as he is just.